Hi, my name is Carlo Volpe,
And I'm Desmond Silva,
and
and
welcome to
welcome to
Centerville
Centerville
Voice.
Voice.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Centerville Voice. My name is Carlo, and my good friend Desmond. How are you, Des?
Okay, how about you, Carlo?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you, thank you. Everybody, welcome back to Centerville Voice, episode number 33. And Des, let's just get into it. What's been going on in my mind, what's been eating away at my mind is the recent news from the Oakville, right?
Oakville.
Oakville
Yep.
teacher, Oakville, Trafalgar area. And let's, I mean, I don't even know how to present this other than a teacher, a trans teacher
Mhm.
that went to school with pretty much ridiculous. I don't know if they're
Oversized.
augmented or like prosthetics, right?
Yeah,
Prosthetics chest.
prosthetics.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a million things wrong with it, but
Yes.
let's take your initial take on it. What do you
Well,
like? What?
first of all, for everyone who doesn't know it's not a prosthetic leg we're talking about. It's
No.
not a prosthetic arm. We're
Mm.
talking about prosthetic mammillary glands,
Yeah. So
about the
fake boobs.
size of very large beast balls,
Yeah.
which the little, you know, the tippy tips are protruding right
Yeah.
through the scroll through the thing. I mean, if a normal woman, if like a born 100% female woman walked in and even with natural like that,
Yeah.
right? And
It would turn heads.
yeah, they would turn heads, and on top of that, it would if you they didn't wear a brassiere, it wouldn't cover them properly, and they would be noted down for going around, going
Exposing,
around
essentially.
exposing themselves in a way, basically going to school commando, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is not appropriate. And so you have this this man who has basically said he's transitioned to female.
Trans to
I
woman.
mean, we don't
Okay.
know. Like it says prosthetics. I don't know if they're just balls or whatever the case is, but but the thing is that they're enormous.
Yeah.
There's very few women in the like one in what a million women who would
Yeah.
have that type of Chesterfield,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Well, well, what bothers me about it is first of all, outside of work, outside of school, in your own house, like we always have these ideas, right? Do whatever you want in your own house. I'm
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in that. As long as you're not hurting anybody, do what you want, right?
Mhm.
But like you said, if this was any other person that was basically, if this was in the past and we had a
Yeah.
female teacher and we had that and nipples showing everything, right? I'm sure there'd be talks in the school board. I'm sure there'd be talks on everything else.
Mhm.
But the problem with this is that I feel like it's specifically part of this movement.
And most of all is that women who end up with developing, that size, that cup size,
Mm.
it typically happens naturally, right?
Sure.
It's
Most
not
cases, maybe.
most cases like there, but and the thing is, if you had a woman who was in the teaching
Mm.
profession, typically she wouldn't go about augmenting herself like that. Most women in that type of profession probably don't.
Or at the very least, probably not deliberately showing it.
Exactly.
Cover up maybe for the weekend or whatever you do.
And the thing is, if they do augment it, like they're gonna get up to like maybe a D, right?
I
As
mean,
but
that's
this is
yeah.
not even a D.
It
This
looks
is
like beach balls, honestly.
oh my gosh, they're huge.
Yeah,
Like
it's
seriously,
ridiculous.
like here's my head. It's like there's like this.
Exactly.
Okay. At
But
most
here's what gets me is
like
that
around
that
here. Like
that's what gets me about it though is that's a deliberate action. It
it
wasn't
is
like,
deliberate.
oops, something slipped and they exposed these giant breasts. It's like
No,
this person got dressed in the morning, wore this to a school where they're educating kids. That's the
Mhm.
problem, right? We're not talking about what
Exactly.
people doing at a nightclub. I don't care what people do at a nightclub.
And even
If you're
if
going
they
to teach
did
my
have
kids, that's what matters.
an operation to put this in, the fact of the matter is that they they still chose that.
Yeah.
And there is teacher,
Mm.
okay, a born male teacher decided to
Mm.
make themselves look like this, and
Yeah.
then a shop teacher at that,
Yeah.
at a high school, you have
Yeah.
kids from 14 to 18 or 19 years old that are attending this high school, right?
Yeah.
Which and this so this is it's completely inappropriate,
Yeah.
and of course it has garnered a lot of protests. The vast majority of folks who are at these hearings are against it,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And there's all this small handful who are actually supporting it,
Yeah.
right?
Well, that's interesting because if the vast majority of people are against it,
Yeah.
like they're against it for that specific thing. They're against it because it's in the schools. They don't want their children exposed to it and all of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
But this is a perfect example of how a small minority, the media makes it look like everybody feels this way. Everybody thinks it's okay to do this. Everybody thinks when it's really not.
It's not.
So what's the purpose? What's the purpose of, if we could just assume, what's the purpose of this teacher doing that?
I have no idea. Honestly,
Other than attention.
that's the
I
only
could only
thing.
think of its attention.
Yeah, because I've seen other trans folks who actually
There's
suffer
tons of trans people, yeah.
dysphoria, and the thing is, I worked with some, and when they after they transition, they look perfectly not like normal, right? You have a trans woman that looks like normal individual, right?
Typical woman or whatever.
Typical woman, maybe with a few features that kind of indicate, okay, maybe this was there was a bit of a change that was done here, but you know what? Nobody cares in that case because
Exactly.
the thing is, this individual didn't choose to put themselves in a very provocative manner.
Exactly.
Right? Imagine if let's say this particular shopkeeper was a straight dude, cisgender, straight, normal, natural born, cisgendered straight dude. Okay. And he went to school today, and instead he just put a big humongous bulge on his pants.
Yep. Prosthetic wiener, for lack of a better term. Let's just say that. Yeah.
Say that
that'd be acceptable.
The hot dog is trailing down his pants. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and
it's hard to even imagine how ridiculous that would be.
It would be ridiculous. And there'd be mothers and fathers be calling in, why are you exposing my kid to that? This is not an issue about being LGBT. This is an issue of individuals' choices to act in a provocative manner that is totally inappropriate. And this type of and honestly, these are the types of people that should be, I'm sorry, locked up for indecent exposure and indecent acts.
Well, and I want to say too, this is not this old mentality of like, oh, this teacher with a short skirt. This is not that same discussion. This is not even discussion of a teacher with a low cut shirt. That's not even the same discussion either, right?
No.
I could only think the purpose of doing this in a classroom with minors around is to get attention, is to actually be provocative. Like you said, it's provocative, right? But what are they provoking? They're trying to, if I can only assume, right? Is this person trying to get attention, trying to get shine light on the LGBT? I don't even think they're trying to do that. I think they're really just trying to be almost narcissistic, like you were saying. Me, look at me, and let's see what I can get away with. Maybe, I don't know. Like,
another thing is that they've also been including a lot more LGBTQ literature in schools. There are students that I know personally who are being forced against their will to do basically indoctrination type of lessons into LGBTQ ideology. And some of the stuff is fairly graphic. Their lessons on how to give H jobs. Okay.
Really? Just
kids, teenagers, and young and 8th graders and 7th graders are being taught the tips on how to give H jobs, how boys give that to other boys.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. So this speaks on the idea that, like, not just like, I want to say this is a sensitive topic, right? So I want to make sure that I'm clear on this. I'm not against anybody doing any of these things, right? In their own home, in their own private life, on the weekends with their friends, and just like what I do in my life, I want to be free, and other people want to be free, right? But when you go to work and your job is to teach young, developing minds, right?
Impressionable minds,
exactly. And you're a leader, right? You're someone that we could how many teachers have you looked up to over the years? I've looked up to most of my teachers, right? Unless they give me a reason not to. And this would be a reason not to.
Exactly.
So I'm saying, like, I want to make sure that I'm saying, like, I'm not against this. I don't want people to put in the comment section, oh, you guys are just homophobic or transphobic. It's nothing like that. It's we're trying to protect the education system.
Exactly. And the thing is, this stuff is not meant for family friendly environments. This is adult activity that belongs in adult spheres.
And
So,
if you, yeah,
I mean, if you have a lot of the behavior that goes on in the Pride Parade, a lot of behavior that goes around in this type of stuff, if you had it out at any other time, in any other circumstances, you would be arrested for indecent exposure or indecent act or inappropriate behavior in public, indecent
yeah.
behavior in public. But the thing is, because they're LGBT, they get a basically a pass on this.
Well, and the weirdest thing I feel about this is that they're acting like they're a repressed group, but they're not even close to
No,
repressed.
they're not.
It's promoted. What's the opposite of repression? It's like they're promoting it. They're
Exactly. It's all over the
endorsing it.
TV, even. Dude, there was a show called, what's it? Five Queens and a Queer.
Okay.
It's on Rogers Television.
I'm not surprised I haven't seen it.
Okay. It was on my screensaver of my television. This show, I checked the rating, is 18 plus.
Wow.
They had a couple of shows that were 18 plus on my screen, on my television.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do a thing about it.
Yeah.
My little boy goes up and puts this thing, and he's exposed to this crap. They've got the adult fun store that advertisements at 7 or 8 o'clock a.m. when people are getting ready for work, when people want to listen to the news and go to school. My wife used to always want to listen to listen to the news, so she can learn about the weather and all that stuff, and just learn about what's happening around town, like the local news on CTV.
Yeah.
And what you have is the adult fun store. They are having their advertisements right at that time when everybody's getting ready for work, and everyone, also all the little kids are getting ready for school.
Yeah.
Now my wife has just decided to turn it off. He doesn't want to even have the TV on.
So it begs the question, like, where is this coming from? What do you think?
It's that they just want to push. I don't know why they're doing this.
Yeah.
Right? But this is this has gone back all the way to the 60s, because this, as we mentioned before, is the legacy of Alfred Kinsey, right? You know what I'm talking about, right?
I think so. Is that the birth control? No, what is it? What
No,
guy is
no. This is that professor who was against. He was basically for promoting. He's the father of the sexual revolution.
Okay.
That's what he was. He was for promoting promiscuity and out of wedlock relations. He was for promoting LGBTQ rights.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about just, the right to get a job and stuff like that. No, I'm talking about promoting the lifestyle.
Lifestyle, yeah.
Right.
Well, and this is what happens. Like they
Judeo-Christian values, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, and what gets me so upset or get worked up about it is that to be a young person and be so impressionable, right? And there's a lot of young people who fell in the not fell for fell in, but fell for the idea of free love, free sex. There's no ramifications for sex. There's no danger. Just free love, whatever. And I understand why young people are into that, because they're so curious about it. Right, especially if they grow up in a conservative family, or what are labeled as sheltered, but they're not really sheltered, they're just conservative, right? But it's so interesting to those people because they just want a piece of it, and they get a little bit, and what is it? It's like the first time you see a naked boobs or something, right? You're like, oh, what is that? Whatever, right? But it's like, but we're playing into it. It's like so much of it, and I mean, this talk about slippery slopes. Look what's going on.
It is a slippery slope. I mean, ever since, I'm sorry to say, but just ever since Alfred Kinsey was accepted, it's been a slippery slope. Ever since we had, birth control has been a slippery slope into abortion. Pope John Paul II stated that decades ago, and people were like, "Oh, it's never going to happen." It's happened. Now they're using abortion as a form of contraception, when just 20 years ago, or even 30 years ago, people were saying, "Okay, abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. Only used in extreme cases." That's where they said it would be. Did it happen that way? Nope. Kept pushing. Roe v. Wade helped to push that. And now we end up with the mess we are right now, where we have about 80,000 to 350,000 abortions done per year in Canada or in the United States,
Yeah.
and about over 70% of those, almost 70% to 90% of those are due purely to convenience, or less than 10%. Okay, almost close to, like, for instance, were due to rape, incest, and where the mother's life is in danger. Less than 10,
very small.
It's closer to almost 1%, right?
So so what happened though? Like, I don't know what happened, but like somewhere along the way, it's like we try.
There are
Like, so like the
activists.
progression, the progression of liberalism it almost sounds like it's ditching of responsibilities. The more
It
liberal
is.
we go, the less responsibilities we have.
It is. It's almost
But
satanic in a way, because this is all about,
but
destroying.
then we want the government to be responsible for us. Isn't that funny?
That's the thing, yeah.
That's the
But the
catch
thing
22.
is, it's the destruction of personal accountability and personal responsibility.
Yeah.
Live how you want to live, okay? And that's what they're trying to now. They're trying to push this type of agenda on small children. And the only thing that I can tell that why someone would do this is to destabilize the entire nation, because that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Is by
Break
destroying
up the family.
destroying accountability, destroying family, destroying discipline in the family, right? Pitting father and mother against child, right?
Yeah.
We see the divorce rates, right? This is how you destroy a country from the inside,
Yeah.
right? So there's got to be someone out there that wants to see Canada and the United States just fall down, because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think it was what Assad, that guru. I put his name up there, but I showed it to you, Carlo. He's in India. He's a Hindu guru, okay, and he said that yes, people who are LGBTQ, they should be allowed to live their life, without any type of
Oppression.
type of oppression. Oppression in the sense that they should be allowed to have a job, they should be able to have a home, they should be able to, if they have two people who live together and they keep it behind closed doors, it doesn't really affect anybody, like that, that's fine. But don't promote it. If you leave it alone, this group will remain as a very tiny, small minority worldwide. Okay? But if you promote it, what's the promotion for? Is to increase their numbers. That's what it is.
Well, and I wonder if it's just something as simple as this makes money. Conflict makes money. This makes money. Anytime you have two people, a country divided, you can make money off of that, right?
Oh, I can see that. I mean, the whole sex change operations, especially down the States, are really, they're expensive. There are doctors making, and medical facilities that are making, and pharmaceutical companies that are making hand over fist in the destruction of the body of many thousands of individuals, right? And they want to get them young, so that now you could start doping up your kid and all that stuff. Same parents that they won't even let their kids touch dairy, as Bill Maher says, or they will be hovering over the kids. Go the sex change operation, fine.
Yeah, we banned lawn darts because they were dangerous, but we'll go lop off the kids' genitals.
The lawn darts were banned because they're dead, because they're dangerous. Yet when I was a kid, when we were small, we didn't have to wear helmets when we went on a bicycle.
No.
Okay.
Be careful.
Back in the 90s. Yeah, be careful, right? Maybe in the 90s, we started having to wear helmets. It became law. Okay. But now, sex change operation, go right ahead.
That's the thing. Like, it's so, and this plays into a lot of our discussions where we say, where's the left going, right? Communism. Where's the left going as far as making everybody, these categorizing everybody, right? And different segmented groups, so then nobody's valuable. And then what happens? And I think the end result too is like, well, then I can see people rely on the state more. If the state is telling you what to believe, the state is telling you what to think, the state is telling you how to live your life, and then, well, I'm going to go to the state for help. And that's why it's like, a good buddy of mine says, Carlo, churches got too small and the government got too big.
And he's right.
There's a lot to do with it. And this is someone who's not even religious said this to me. So we know him, you know him very well. I'll tell you later, but it makes so much sense, because it's like, you need balance, right?
Exactly.
And one thing that I didn't like when I was a kid is even up until a couple of years ago, even now I sometimes fight with this is even the idea of balance, because balance is very hard. Balance is extremely hard, right, to do. It's difficult. But sometimes when you have a super liberal idea, it's like, we don't need to balance then. Just have it your way on everything. I'm like, well, you see what happens. It gets to be extreme, right?
And there's a lot of parents who are going, and if you look in communist China, right? In China these days, if you look at what they do in the schools, is that they have pro-government propaganda included in the curriculum. Okay, and they'll spend hours dedicating time just to, indoctrinating kids.
Exactly.
Now, if you look at what's happening with this movement, a lot of parents are complaining about it, and most of the advocates are like, we need these books in the school. You people are against books. No, because these books, they said, oh, if you don't like it, well, then don't show it to your children. How can we stop it from being shown to our children when the schools are being shoved it down the children's throats without our permission in the first place? We can say, no, we don't want it, but why? Why is this being pushed down even when we say no?
And this is something, and this is why you're seeing such a backlash. People can take a lot, but when you start messing with our kids, right, and our kids' future, people are standing up. So let's talk about that. Like, there are people protesting this teacher down Southern Ontario, right? There are people that are speaking up now about this, and I think sometimes things like this shows me that the pendulum is swinging back maybe a little bit, but it's too bad that we have to now fight for it now.
The thing is that most people, most people are not political. Most people are not really politicized, or they don't have any type of political inclinations. A lot of people will usually just stay neutral on things, and they just live their life. No one wants to deal with politics.
Yeah,
why would you want to deal with politics?
It's disgusting. You're right.
It's a dirty thing. So, but why? What activates people to become political? If you're a mother or father, the first thing that is going to make a person who was previously not political is you go after their kids.
That's right.
That's how I got into it.
Yeah.
I was not a political person. I never got into politics at all. But the moment Kathleen Wynne said that the Liberal government of Ontario is going to try and co-parent my child, no.
Yeah.
No.
You're right. Even during COVID, all my flags went up when I heard City of Toronto saying to young people, as young as 11 and 12-year-old, you can come down to City Hall and get your shot. And they specifically said, you don't need your parents' permission. Okay, so when I have a state telling kids, you don't need your parents' permission, you're going to get my guard up, because it's my kids, my responsibility, your responsibility for your kids, right?
And by brainwashing the kids to have a different set of beliefs from their parents, they can turn the kids against the parents and then believe only the government. So yeah, there is if you think about it that way, there is a grand scheme, and the government is the winners, not the kids, not the parents, because the government's got the kids on their side, and now they've got voters who will keep the politicians in power. Yeah, that's what it is.
Well, exactly. When a politician can't rely on immigrants coming in after a while, right? Because that's our liberal government, I think, relies on a lot of immigrants, or a lot of people that, not even just immigrants, but just subsidies and people that are on the system, right? Sucking at the tit, right? And but when people just realize what the government's doing, and they say, okay, well, I can't attack these adults anymore, or I can't get them. Well, let's go after the kids, because the kids are impressionable, like you said. The kids are easily molded, because, well, if Johnny and Susie and all these other friends are doing something, it's very easy for Sally to want to do it.
Oh yeah, because it's the cool thing, it's the trendy thing. Because kids,
I remember being young. Being young, and my buddy Joey did something, or Paul did something. I wanted to be like them. Like,
it's a hive mind mentality, because when you're a child, you're at the closest. Your mentality is at the closest to the early stages of humanity than when we were in survival mode as a species. Then it would have been than it is right now, right? So you see hierarchical social structures that are created amongst school children, right? There's social structures amongst the boys, there's social structures amongst the girls, and then there is an overarching social structure that is completely independent of the teachers or anybody else.
You're right, yeah.
By being able to manipulate the ones at the top, you can eventually manipulate the ones that are at the bottom, because the ones at the very bottom, are the social outcasts. The ones at the top are the social elites, right? And then there's the ones in the middle who don't want to be the outcasts and want to be up there with the elites. It's a
Yeah.
whole keeping up with the Joneses type of scenario, right?
Well, exactly. Yeah. And like you said, and when kids are young and they're at that point where they're most impressionable, like that's when they're going to get people. That's when you're going to indoctrinate. That's when you're going to brainwash them. But my question is, and I keep on thinking this too, is like, as the older I get and the older my friends get, right, and our friends and our relatives and people I know, why do most people get conservative when they get older? I want to talk about
Because, well, I think there's a couple of things, right? There's two things
reason.
that both babies and senior citizens have in common. Okay, two things that both. That's why there's sorry, there's not two things. One, well, sorry, there's two things. Yeah, there's two things that babies and senior citizens have in common. One, they don't have much teeth,
Yeah.
and two, they like very familiar things, right?
Yes. I
They
guess
like
so.
familiarity, right? Babies like familiarity because it gives them security. If they see someone that is unknown to them, they will shrug away from that individual and go towards mommy and daddy, or even grandma and grandpa. Grandma and grandpa's around, right?
Yeah.
Or the brothers and sisters if they have older brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
The older folks, the senior citizen, their mind has been set, totally set after all these years. It's not
Yeah.
developing any further, right? So what happens is it's harder for them to learn new things. That's when you start to see a lot of older folks end up with the whole nostalgia thing, right? They go back to the old days, right?
Yeah.
Even Henry Ford, right, who was seen as a great innovator, and when he was young, when he became old, he yearned for the old farm life that he had when he was a boy.
There you go.
So, and this, I'm
Well,
talking about when he was like in his 70s,
yeah.
right?
So I guess my question more is like people our age, 40s,
Yes.
30s, 40s, 50s. Is it maybe it's just the idea of when we have kids, now we're worrying about our kids,
That is primarily it. And the thing is,
right?
what you'll see is that becoming a parent, when you become a parent, particularly,
Changes everything.
there is a big difference in the way that you behave, and especially amongst fathers, right? And this is why the fathers are important in any family. Fathers go into protective mode.
Yes.
Like, you touch my kid, I will mute you, right?
Yeah.
That type of scenario, right? That's what fathers are like, right? Mother would be like, don't touch my baby,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Father is like, okay, you're gonna
They
touch
protect it in different ways. Yeah.
exactly. So that's why. So when you look at that, that's why you fathers, especially, will be very aggressive when it comes to to protecting their children, right?
Yeah. Makes sense.
So all the things that dad would have done when he was younger, he doesn't want to do anymore. He don't want his kids doing it, right?
That's right. He's wiser. He's learned.
He's learned because he's done all that crap and all that stuff.
Well, and
With
then hopefully, I mean, hopefully
smoking, going whatever, right?
exactly. Hopefully you see the error in your ways, right? Like
Yeah.
we've all made mistakes, right? And it's not like other kids in the next generations are not going to make the super state mistakes. They are going to make the
You
same
can make the
mistakes.
same lots of mistakes.
But hopefully they learn from a parent who is wise enough to say, this is how I did it. Yes, I made mistakes, but this is what I've learned from it. So that's our job now as parents. We're in our 40s. We have kids. We have, into this, like back to the school system thing, right? Like, certain things are all fine and dandy until you encroach on my parenting.
Exactly.
Until you start taking away, my job. My
And I
job
think
is to parent my kid.
a lot more parents have more conservative minds when it comes to upbringing of a child than liberal minds, because that's the more successful way to bring a child up in a more structured manner, right? Otherwise, if you give them a more liberal mind, well, the child ends up in repeating the same blasted old mistakes that the parents did when they were young, or even worse, right?
It's funny. I see this meme on Facebook every once in a while, and I love it. It's like, if you didn't think your former self was an idiot, you're probably still an idiot,
Yeah, exactly.
right? Like if you can't acknowledge humility to realize that, yes, we made a lot of mistakes, and you're probably still making those same mistakes.
Oh yeah, and I think there's one movie clip I remember seeing where there was a young bunch of teenage boys that this was taken like in the 60s, okay, where they thought that they were better than the silent generation that came before them, and their elders were giving them a long lecture about how foolish they were. And if you could take that and you could apply it to any generation.
It's true.
How the teens always try to you basically upset or prove themselves to the older generation as, okay, we're better than you, right? But no, you're not. I mean, my parents, they were not exactly where as much educated as I am, but that doesn't mean that I didn't make any mistakes,
No,
along
it's
the
not all
line
about
that they didn't
education
go
either,
through.
right?
But
Yeah,
in
it's not
terms of
all.
life experience, there's stuff that they already knew that I would go through, or could go through, right? And me being born in this country, well, they're not there. Well, they're born in another country.
Yeah.
I know even more so what my son is going to go through than my parents thought of how I would go through here in Canada because of a different environment, right?
Yeah.
In different times. So, and I can tell my wife exactly what my son's going to go through.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I always keep myself abreast of, teenage slang terms, the way he says things and all that stuff, because I'm always actively thinking, what's going to happen to my son?
Yeah. Well, one of the sad things I saw over the last couple of years, especially during COVID, I don't know if it had anything to do with COVID, but it was during that time, is the attack on boomers. Like, oh my goodness. I've seen, everybody hears a thing like Karen this, Karen that. And I've actually gotten to a point now I hate when someone calls somebody Karen. I just think it's ridiculous. I'm like, pick a better insult than that. But I see a lot, especially during the COVID, I see like, oh, boomers, sit down, boomer. You don't know this, boomer. You don't know. Like, maybe it's just another case of attacking the generation above them, right? Or two
It
generations
is.
above
I
them.
mean, there's this whole song about it called "Okay Boomer."
Okay, boomer. Whatever you say. Okie dokie, boomer. BOOMER. Please, your dusty mood don't vibe with me. You are old, and so therefore I must say 10 for dinosaur. Hey. Okay, boomer. Whatever you say, boomer. Okay, boomer. Whatever you say, boomer.
Yeah.
Like,
And-
seriously.
But it's funny because every generation, when they get to our age, maybe, or older, hopefully younger than us, we realize this, but we realize, wait a second, that generation knew a heck of a lot more than we gave them credit for. And it's always the case.
Yep.
Because they knew what kept families together, right? Even the people that are divorced, they still know what keeps a family together, right? They knew their mistakes, they know their choices they make, right?
I always praise my grandma, right? Because she knew how to keep a family together, right?
Yeah.
God bless her soul, right? I always praise my grandma, and my grandpa, he was a good man, right? He tried his best, despite what his faults were, but he was still a good man in the long run.
Yeah.
And remember when my father was younger, he used to blackguard him, right? He used to blackguard him, but now my dad is now in his age. Now he says, yeah, he was a good father. He was a good father because he wised up. It took him a long time to get there, but he finally wised up.
Well, and that's maturity. We just need to mature.
That is maturity, right?
So if we could maybe wrap this up, Des. What do you think? I mean, so the protest for this teacher, we want to circle back around to this teacher issue. Like, hopefully this doesn't happen I don't think it's happening more than it is showing. Maybe it's not happening as much, but again, if it's happening one or two times, it sounds like it's happening a lot, right?
It's happening a lot. There are a lot of teachers out there now that are actually trying to educate kids on being non-binary, queer, and all that stuff. It's happening a lot right now. Kids being even in the Catholic schools, it's being taught, and it's being taught. I just got to tell everybody out there, for the majority of the silent majority of you that are out there, if you're in Ottawa, we are having the municipal elections. Make sure you go out and vote for your school trustee. Vote for your school trustee. Make sure you don't pick a liberal, because otherwise your kids are going to be screwed. I'm sorry, I'm going to pick sides here. You're better off with a conservative trustee than with someone who wants to push this agenda and ruin your kids.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because we're going through elections too in the Sioux here, right? There's a lot of municipalities going through it, and you're right. Now a lot of times this doesn't get brought up, right? You see the town debate, town hall, whatever. They're not going to talk about this stuff because this is pretty hot topics, right? Now in bigger cities they are going to talk about it, but I doubt in Sault Ste. Marie debate they're probably going to talk about this. But that's the thing, and I'm glad you touched upon is that it is a silent majority, right? It's a very big silent majority, but we're so quiet, and it's in people's nature to be quiet. Like you said at the beginning, no one wants to be political unless they're forced to be.
There's one thing I do hope is that, just like in Oakville, that we have more Muslims come to this country, come to here in Ottawa, because the Muslims actually talk, they actually speak out, and they are
We're
actually
conservative.
they're conservative at the roots, even though they try to portray them as liberal. They're not. And honestly, we need more Muslims in this country. We don't
We need more
Sharia
Christians.
law,
We need more Jews. We need more
and more
Muslims. We need
Jews
more
and yeah, and all that Christians and more
religious in total.
voices.
Yeah.
Like we don't need Sharia law, but
No.
we needs at least need the
Conservative values.
strength and fervor and faith of our Muslim brothers and sisters to. And I'm not Muslim. I'm Catholic, right?
Yeah.
But we need those folks to be able to push all the quiet ones up who are part of the majority and speak up.
And it's true. And it's like other things is that, you know, when you know you're supported by your community, you'll have the confidence to speak up, and you won't be afraid, because
Exactly.
it's terrifying to speak up, be the only guy talking.
Yeah. And the only white folks that were speaking out in Oakville was a small handful. And what they were emboldened by who? The Muslim community.
Wow.
God bless them. Or if they
That's
want
good to hear.
Allah bless them. Whatever, right?
That's great to hear, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like, you know, it's you know, maybe it's just part of my evolution, part of our whatever we growing up as well. It's like I'm realizing, you know, that there's nothing wrong with conservative. It's like,
No.
what do you like? You know, I was also sold a bad bill. You know, when I was younger, it's like liberal, liberal, liberal. That's all you need to do is be
No.
liberal, because these are all old ways and they're all bad. I'm like, well, now I'm realizing the reason why some things are around for a long time is maybe they're good.
Because they've been developed over thousands of years, thousands of years of human experience that you cannot just push aside just because it's the current year.
Well, yeah, and exactly, like, this is probably the only time in history where we can actually make so much money off of this crazy chaos, and people are just exploiting it, right?
That's right.
Well,
anyway, everybody, we are close to the end of our time. So
awesome.
Thank you guys for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video. Peace out.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Thanks for joining in and watching Centerville Voice. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. If you are seeing this on YouTube, make sure you click on the notifications bell so you get notified when we upload new videos, which we release every Friday. Sharing and liking our videos helps promote the channel, and sharing episodes like these helps get the word out so that more people will get to see our videos. If you like what you see and or hear, please consider becoming one of our Patreon supporters. 10% of all Patreon supporter donations we receive goes to our charity of the year. You can visit us at centervillevoice.com to learn more and engage with us on one of our social media pages. Thanks for your support, and we will see you again in our next video or podcast.